morning and welcome. This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell. Adam Talley is out and about somewhere today, and Mr. Leo Kane is hanging with me. Good morning, Mr. Leo.
Yeah, I can't wait. Next week, September 15th, 16th, the Fed will meet to decide what they're doing with the election.
So what do we think we're going to have with interest rates? And we'll get into our market numbers. We think it's going to be a quarter or a half. We know they're going to do something. They just will.
See, that's just the bad situation we're in right now. Now, originally in September, they were going to decide if they were or weren't going to lower rates. Now, everyone is expecting at least a quarter point drop.
It's an election year.
So if they decide not to do that, now originally it was, are we going to drop it all or are we going to wait till November? Now they're in a bad situation where they either have to do a quarter or a half point.
They definitely are, yeah. Which we think it's going to be.
They said they're going to wait for the job reports to come out this morning before they decide any action. Yeah. So they could still very much not lower rates at all.
I think they will. It's just, is it going to be a quarter or half? And that's going to be absolutely based on the job numbers.
See, this is the problem we have with the economy right now is they said they need to look at some reports they have not yet seen to make a decision on whether or not they're doing something. The markets are anticipating they must do a drop. And now the markets are trying to force that by saying, well, it could be a quarter point or a half point. So they're forcing that onto the Fed, and the Fed has to react. So if the Fed doesn't give us at least a quarter point, where originally they were deciding if they were doing a quarter or nothing, if they don't give us at least a quarter point, the market's going to tank. And now they could give us a half point, which was never on the table to begin with, and I would be utterly shocked if we saw a half point drop.
It depends on the job numbers. If those job numbers are bad enough, it's going to happen.
It was between a quarter point and a half. It was between a quarter point and nothing.
You can go back to the audios where I predicted this, where everyone was saying, oh, they're going to reduce the rates, they're going to reduce the rates. And I'm like, no, they're not. Inflation is still rampant. They're not going to reduce the rates this year. Remember that everybody was waiting for that. It didn't happen all meeting long. And then earlier in the year, around first quarter, I said, we'll get one. Late in the year, right before the election, we'll get one. Whether it's a quarter or half remains to be seen. But
this is the first of, if it happens next week, it'll be the first of 4. If it doesn't happen next week, November will be the first of 3. So we know that there is basically a full point reduction coming over the next 4 cycles. So we just have to see how that plays out. So
I don't know that we're going to see a full 1 point drop.
Well, they're predicted they're either going to drop it or not next week. That was the original call.
Right.
And then the following 3 were definitely going down a quarter point.
How can you be so sure? I'm
not sure. I had a whole economic session 2 weeks ago.
I don't think so. I don't think so. We'll see. It's on the record. It's recorded. We'll throw it on a podcast. I don't think so.
That's not my prediction. I sat through some economic sessions, and this is where it gets so...
So the experts are saying expect a quarter, or somehow equal 1?
The experts were saying they either are or are not next week, and then the following 3 you'll get a quarter point decrease.
I'm going to bet that they are.
Well, now they have no choice. They're being pigeonholed into a corner. The ramifications of not doing what the market is expecting them to do is more damaging than them sticking to their guns.
But they only have 2 more meetings to determine this. The one next week and then another one in November. And that's it. November's going to be too late because that's already...
Well, the election's already happened.
Yeah, so they're going to do it now.
The Fed isn't supposed to influence the election, though.
But they do. We know they do.
I think it's happened that way every time.
Yeah, we predicted that because we're in an election year. It's going to happen. So let's talk about some stuff we're seeing in the market. And Jenny, you can comment on this as well. But one of the things I noticed, Leo, I think we're about a 15 to 16% increase this week on new lists. Just this week on new listings over what is actually selling. So when we look at the new listings coming in at 853
versus 844 last week.
Well, I mean, it's a little higher, but the more important thing is you have to compare that to the sold number. So we replenished with 853, but we sold 732 in a 1 week time frame. And the other part that don't even talk about because we're measuring single family homes is other types of real estate, right? Like condos or townhomes or vacant land or manufactured homes. All of those things are additional units on here. We know condos are through the roof in terms of inventory and not quite moving anywhere near as fast. But when you look at just this week, new listings compared to what has actually sold, and our pendings are actually lower. And normally that's been higher than the solds, if you remember. And so those numbers tell a story that we're feeling in the market. Stuff is taking longer to sell. It's several deep price reductions. The sellers that don't want to decrease their prices enough to cause it to sell for the buyers in the market, they're having to either take it off the market and not sell or rent it. That's some of the stuff we're seeing.
Take a look at this globally going back to the beginning of July. It's just very steady. It's just completely very steady. These percentages, if I look at raw percentages, based on the number of new listings, everything else just falls into line.
Well, you can say it's steady based on looking at the numbers. I see a different picture when I look at the numbers, and I know what I feel when I meet people and when I'm in these and the conversations I'm having. And a lot of the conversations I'm having are around affordability, inflation, people putting stuff on credit cards. That is all telltale signs that we are headed towards a recession. I'm just saying, like, I got my thumb on this stuff. I felt it before the crash in 06 when we were at the peak, and I feel it now. I don't know what way it's going to change, but it's definitely changing, and it's going to continue to change, I think, for a minute. I think it's going to go beyond the election. We'll see.
Well, if we're heading towards a recession, then lowering the interest rates isn't going to help.
Just telling you, I know, I agree. They're lowering the rates because we're in an election year.
What I've been hearing is that the condo inventory and the situation with condos is going to affect many of our older Americans, our seniors that are on fixed income, and they're being hit with assessments and rising costs in insurance. And so those fixed costs that they were able to budget for are rapidly changing. And so I have seen some of our legislators kind of starting to speak out about that and say we've got to...
I just don't know what they're going to do about it because the money has to come from somewhere.
Yeah, but a lot of times with this whole fixed income on the condominium market, and I know this from doing so many reserve studies, and what ends up happening is these people who say they're on the fixed income used fixed income to get a discount for living in these condominiums. They weren't properly assessing. They weren't properly budgeting for the roof, the building paint, stairwells, elevators. I understand, and I completely understand about the rising cost of insurance, but using the term "I'm on a fixed income" to keep your dues depressed for the past 10 to 15 years has ramifications, and that's what we're seeing play out.
From an engineering perspective, that makes complete sense. From the layperson perspective, I think it's just more money. They don't understand it.
It's been a decades-long problem where no one has done anything, quote-unquote, illegal or technically improper, even though it was not a good decision. But we have many unqualified people on condominium boards that were like, do we want to pay more? No. Did they understand the long-term ramifications? Maybe or maybe not, or were they just putting their heads in the sand? But we kind of let these people down in that they were able to make these decisions against their better interests, and now we let this go on for decades, and we expected the problem to be just ratified and fixed within a 2-year period, and we're nearing that deadline that was imposed at the end of this year.
So
well, you have to think about it from their perspective, Leo. They're just out looking for homes. They're looking at what they can afford, right? And so the condos are large. I'm just saying, like, when they think about what they can afford, they start with the sales price.
Right.
Then if they're getting a mortgage, they calculate payments. If there's HOA fees, they're adding those in, taxes, whatever additional insurance costs they might need. They're looking at all those things and they're making decisions based on that. It hasn't really been until recently people don't even dive into the stuff we've been talking about
So
for a while.
I would argue against that, and I would argue against that on 3 facts. The property managers and the HOA attorneys who are advising these boards on what to do, the fact that before Senate Bill 4D went into effect, the condominium bills still said you needed to have a reserve study. There are so many associations that we are doing reserve studies for that have been around for 30 years that have never had a reserve study done. Mm-hmm. Never. Where's the property manager saying, hey, you need to get a reserve study done so I can make an accurate budget? Where's the attorney saying, hey, you need to get this done so you can make an accurate budget? And where's the education board members, mandatory education of the board members that say, this condo bill, and I'm talking about the one that existed before Senate Bill 4D, recommends a reserve study to put your budgets together. So for those reasons, these boards were operating on a discount. They were lying to their membership. They were not properly using the fiduciary responsibility they had to run a multi-million-dollar corporation. So now the state is making it mandatory to have the reserve studies done. Now the state is making it mandatory to educate board members on what these reserve studies are for. All of that should have happened a while ago, and it's a failure of the professionals that are advising these boards for the past 20, 30 years that put us in this situation.
It's not an excuse,
Yes.
but I think it's what we're seeing in the labor pool.
Well-
You know what I'm saying? It's not everyone's the same. Not every professional is not the same.
But you would
I'm
wanna
sure
bel-
you bumped into engineers that are not like you, Leo, that don't have the same level of detail and that sort of stuff. It doesn't mean they're not
No,
an engineer.
it's just like let's tie this back to an election year with the feds meddling in the election. If the property manager tells the board you really need to have a reserve study done, or the property manager tells the board, hey, we've got to raise your dues substantially, that board's going to go find a new property manager. So it's this thing like, are advisors in a position, licensed advisors, to give bad advice that actually is what they should be giving, but it's to the detriment of their client? And that's the situation. It's in all industries. I would argue it's still in the real estate industry. If your real estate agent makes a percentage of your price on the house, what is their true incentive to get you a better deal on that house? There's too many professions where it's directly tied, the commission or how much money they make, or even the fact if they're an advisor for you, which means the whole account, is dependent upon them giving you a favorable result. And that is a flaw in this economic system we have called capitalism.
I guess that's a point well taken. I can't argue it. I mean, there's some truth to it, I suppose. I just don't operate like that, so my brain doesn't think like that. But I can't deny that that may exist.
Oh, it definitely exists, and you deal with it as a seller's agent all the time. And now, thankfully, the buyer's agent contracts are separated out. However, you still have those ramifications. I mean, there was a real estate brokerage that tried to operate on a, we're not going to take a percentage of the price, we're just going to do a set fee. They went out of business. There was an electronics store that Circuit City, they operated like, we're not going to do commission-based sales. We don't want our clients to feel, we don't want our customers to feel pressured to have to buy and be upsold and all this stuff. They went out of business. So obviously, in the economic system we exist in, capitalism, commission-based sales or appeasing your client to keep your job is going to be on the forefront of a lot of professionals.
Yeah, the margins are not there with these flat fee shops. That's why they always go out of business, because the margins just aren't there.
Oh, they could be there. It's just a different model that needs to truly be explored. And now we shift from capitalism to socialism, and we are a democratic capitalist country. So I'm not preaching socialism. I'm just pointing out flaws in the system we currently have for these professionals who, a property manager who's suggesting a reserve study 5 years ago, who's suggesting doubling dues because they have to pay for a roof coming up, is going to get fired.
Well, we're going to wrap up this segment with the numbers. I'm just going to recap them real quick, give our off-air number, and then we're going to come back and talk about property deed fraud. When we get back, we have a special guest this hour. I think you're going to enjoy the story, and we got some audio we're going to play, so you'll definitely want to stick around for that. If you're getting in or out of the car, you want to make sure you catch this show in its entirety on a podcast. Our off-air number is 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775. New listings coming in at 853 this week. Our solds are coming in at a 732, and pendings are coming in at 702 this week. Price decreases $13.98. This is Katrina Madewell. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. Our off-air number once again is 813-377-2775. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Welcome home. This is Leo Kane with Beryl Engineering and Inspection, bringing you the... Wow, we got fraud to talk about. We
do.
Exciting stories.
All right,
This is a charged show.
It is. We're going to have fun. So if you're a regular listener of Tampa Home Talk, you've probably already heard Jenny and I talk about property deed fraud, because she's on a regular. Insured Title is proud sponsor of Tampa Home Talk. And essentially, They're pretty good at catching these guys. So
We have 100% track record of busting fraudsters. So any
if
deals
you get them.
if they come through, so we're not the only title company in town, but 100% of the fraud deals that have attempted to go through our office have been busted, and some have met criminal charges. So we're proud to say that we are fraud busters with 100% track record of busting fraud.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about property deed fraud and what it is, because I think most people are super confused that it even exists or how it works. So what's happening is the fraudsters are getting very, very smart.
Yes.
They are starting to understand the title process a little bit and how things work. And so essentially it's where it's identity theft. So they're using someone else's identity, and then they assume that property owner's identity to basically sell or mortgage or both that property that they don't actually own.
Correct. They are not the lawful rightful sellers.
Right. So in essence, that's what property deed fraud is.
Yes.
Now,
common misconceptions.
how the heck does it happen, right? And the common misconceptions.
So common misconceptions are, I live in my house, that can't happen to me. Wrong. I have a mortgage on my house, so like the bank is looking out for me, that can't happen to me. Wrong. No one could record a fake
They
deed.
actually, let me pipe in there a minute because I'm so familiar with the mortgages.
Yeah.
There's actually a due on sale clause. So let's say the fraudsters did a deed and they recorded it to someone else. They could technically call your home mortgage due, by the way, even though you didn't deed it.
Oh, they also record fake satisfactions of mortgage.
Yeah, isn't that great? It's lovely.
Yes. So, having a mortgage doesn't protect you. Oh, at the clerk's office, someone is double checking these things. Wrong. So there's a lot of things that you would assume are in place that are not. And we have a double-edged sword in Florida in that many of our public records are public information, and that's meant to have transparency in government. However, it makes all of this information free and available to these fraudsters anonymously. They can access this information, and then they can record this fraudulent deed electronically. So
Which is crazy.
An actual person does not need to present him or herself at the courthouse to record the fake deed that they've created and fake notary signs.
So Jenny, how does that work? How are they e-recording? Because I thought you guys I'm old school where you guys used to have to take it to the courthouse. And I know there's a way that you guys e-record it in your office, but I thought you had to have something connected to the county. What's the process to do that?
Just set up an account.
That's it?
Yep.
So I think this goes back to what I said before, where you should be a licensed professional. You should have to prove that in order to have an account.
You
To
should at
even
least have
search
to
on-
provide some credentialing information so that, for example, if you want to file something with Hillsborough County Clerk, I, as an individual person, I can set up my own account and I can file things on behalf of myself. But you should have to have some sort of credentialing information, some sort of validation, two-factor authentication, providing your driver's license or something to prove that I am me filing on behalf of me. So that if something fraudulent does happen, they have an electronic record that they can track now back to whoever, an IP address or...
And they should be blocking IP addresses that are not here in the States.
I don't know if they do that or if they do not. Clearly, that is something that technology people could probably do.
They might be able to figure
They
it out.
do that on the
Yes.
permit side of things, because I know when I'm operating out of the Belize office, I have to use a VPN to
Okay, so that's how
simulate
they do
being
it.
in the
There
United
you
States.
go.
But even then, VPNs are so easy to set up. I do it legitimately because I have a computer and a server here in the United States. But you can buy remote VPNs. A lot of people use it to stream your Plus services from different countries where you're blocked from content, or you live in those countries and you want the content, and you just can't get it, and you're still paying for the service, so they'll VPN to obtain the service to watch the shows they want.
So here's what I'm going to do, and I want to give you an idea how this plays out. So I have a call queued up where we got a property deed fraud call. Thanks, Shriner, for editing that down a little bit and taking out some information. We're going to leave the real fraudster's email in there, so if you guys want to
So if you want
reach out
to,
him, you can.
dox him, let's go.
Yeah. So we're going to play this, and I'm going to tell you the rest of the story when we come back. So all right, Shriner, go ahead and hit that call.
This is Katrina. Hello? Hello, can you hear me now?
All right, I've potted down your mic, but you'll be able to speak to me in queue if you need me to stop and bring you back up.
Thanks.
So I have some information here Okay.
Adelisa gave me some info that you're looking to sell a piece of property.
Yeah, it's a vacant land.
You can pull any addresses out if that pops up. 7902 North Avenue.
No, 7906.
Hit the dumb button.
I left that in.
Hit the dumb button. Yeah, just hit it. Okay.
All right, hold on a minute. Let me just look that up.
I did hit the dump.
Thank you.
7906. Okay, I'm just pulling this up.
What can you tell me about the property?
Oh, it's a vacant land. I'm just trying to move my investment from Tampa down to New York. I'm currently working right now in New York.
Oh, you're from New York and you want to sell the land here?
No, I'm trying to move my investment from Tampa down to New York. I'm currently in New York right now.
Okay, you want to liquidate your investments here in Tampa and go to New York?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And how long have you owned the property?
For about 3 years. 4 years right now.
Okay. Can you pause it? Was there ever a structure or a home or anything? So, am I potted back up? So here's the thing. So I was starting to get suspicious of the call because you just kind of, if you've been doing it for a long time, you can feel it. So part of the reason why I asked him that question, hey, how long have you owned the land? Because that's a quick question you probably should know the answer to or really close to. And in the meantime, I'm looking at public records to see when that deed occurred. So go ahead, continue on. And was there ever a structure or...
You're back down.
Property?
No, it's just a raw land.
It's just land, okay. And then, what is your mailing address?
Sorry?
What's your mailing address?
In New York?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get that to you via email.
Okay. Pause. Okay. So here's the second little clue, right? So I'm asking him, hey, what's your mailing address? This is vacant land, so... Where should we, and that's the note. He should immediately be able to give me where the tax bills go, which is the person that's paying for the tax bill on the property. All right, carry on. And what are you looking to get for this property?
Just a little bit too.
I'm sorry.
200,000.
Around 200,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you know how much you paid for the property originally? Pause.
Sure.
And there's another probing question. How much did you pay for the property initially, right? I might not remember the date, but I'm probably going to remember the price. I'm just saying, like as an owner of land myself. And so I'm waiting to see how he's going to respond to this. But that was another one of my probing questions. So go ahead. How much did you purchase the property for initially? Do you remember?
I'll check that and get it to you.
Okay. All right. I will do a comparable market analysis. What I need from you is just a copy of your ID texted to me.
Okay.
Since you're in New York and you can meet in person, I'll need to get that sent over by email or text.
All right. Just send me your email. I'll get it through email.
Okay. The email address I have for you is stanleyjones012@outlook.com. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, great. And is this the best cell phone number for you?
Yeah, this is the best.
Okay, great. I'll send you my information by email if you could just respond back with your ID and market analysis for it, and I will send you that information back once I've completed it.
Okay. All right. Good.
Thanks. All right.
Have a great day.
So at this point, I know that we're talking to a fraudster. I just know, right? He can't answer any of my questions. He can't answer stuff he should know. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So the next thing I do, I didn't do a CMA on it, by the way. I just said, let me see if I can find the real Stanley Jones. And so that's my guest I'm going to introduce to you today. So Stanley, thanks for being my guest this morning. I'm so glad you could make it here. Can you say hello to our listeners? We're going to take a break and then we're going to talk about this when we come back.
Yeah, hello. Good morning.
Not the same voice at all.
No, not the same voice at all. This is the real Stanley Jones, and so we're going to chat with him as soon as we come back right after the break. Our off-air number is 813-377-2775. You can call or text 813-377-2775. If you've got some questions or you need some more information, we're going to tell you how to protect yourself from this very same thing. 813-377-2775. Stick around. We'll be right back, and we're going to talk about a House bill and a Senate bill also that you need to be aware of, and call your legislators on this. So stick around. This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, and we'll be right back after this break.
Welcome home. This is Leo Kane with Beryl Engineering and Inspection, giving you the exciting, juicy title stuff. In fact, we had a little off sidebar conversation. If we have time later in the episode, we might revisit it. But let's go back to the main story at hand. Our main story at hand is
property deed fraud. To recap this, we played the show or the call earlier about the fraudster that called in looking to sell his property. And so I tracked down the real owner, which is in the studio with me today. So welcome, Stanley. Thanks for being our guest this hour. Really appreciate it. Tell me, why don't you recap for the listener? Tell me what your thoughts were when I first called you. Tell me what your initial inclination was after that call.
Well, my first thought was, it's happening again. Because a year previous, I got a phone call from a prospective buyer wanting to discuss the property that he had already had surveyed and was preparing to buy, and he smelt a rat. So he did some research and called me and said, "Is your property for sale?" I said, "Not now, not ever. I've owned it for 40 years. So in late July, Katrina gave me a call, similar call. It was like, "Are you Stanley Jones? And do you own this property? And is it for sale?" I said, "I am. It isn't." And she said, "I suspected that. I got a phone call with a fellow identifying himself as Stanley Jones, and he's attempting to sell your property." So on August the 2nd, I went to the Tampa Police Department. That was after filing online. You can file online for a property alert. So if there's activity on your property, the clerk of court will notify you, but it's after the fact.
Yes.
They'll notify you by text, phone, or email, whichever you select, but the crime has already been committed. So Katrina gave me the phone number, email address that the gentleman had given to her. I went to the police department, filled out a statement, because when filing the alert, I'm backing up, but the bottom line says, if you suspect fraud, contact your local law enforcement. So I went and spoke with 2 detectives for an hour, filled out a form, and the bottom line, they said they don't have adequate laws to handle these situations, and they suggest that I file a judgment or lien on my own properties, which I did, but that still doesn't stop it, because we suspect that this fictitious Stanley Jones has a driver's license with his picture and my name on it. So all he's got to do is show that fictitious identification and follow through with the transaction. And again, I don't get notified until after the transaction's complete.
Right.
So when I was filing, I elected to file judgments against my property. On the form, I put it on my printer and put my driver's license in the upper right-hand corner so the clerk could see there's a difference of appearance of the two Stanley Joneses, but the clerk of court refused to accept those judgments, telling me that they can't file anything with a picture on it. So
For identity.
obviously the law needs to be changed.
Well, think about it. I don't know that you want your driver's license out there in public records anyway, because then it's even easier to assume your identity, right? So I think that's probably part of it. It probably has more of a protection than a hindrance by not doing that part. But so did you record the judgments without your photo?
Yes.
Okay. So that's good, because then the property can't transfer if there's a judgment on it.
Well, here's what would happen. So what title would do, and I'm not an attorney, but I have been advised
A little
previously.
title knowledge, only a little.
Title knowledge, but not an attorney. I have been advised by a real estate attorney in the past that you can also file what they call a quiet title suit, and that essentially is like a hold on your title.
Or
That it
list
can't-
pendants. You could do a
right, that
number
it
of
can't
things.
go forward. So now, if you do that, then as soon as it gets to the title company, if there's a buyer, we start researching it and we find that.
You could file list pendants too. Any of those actions would stop a sale from going through. And so here's the thing, and I want to talk about House Bill 289 and also the comparable bill, Senate Bill 526. This is under consideration right now in Tallahassee, so I'm going to highly encourage you guys to contact your local legislators and push for those to go through. So this bill is trying to establish a pilot program in Broward County, which realtors, title agents, and attorneys would alert the Broward County property appraiser if a transaction is underway in the county, which is good, right? So this program in Broward County, the property appraiser would then alert the owner who have registered at the county's program as a second way to flag the transaction. So this is what you're talking about, Stanley, where at this point right now, you're not going to catch it on the alert system until the transaction's already happened and someone's already transferred the money and transferred the deed. Yet this pilot program would actually alert them in advance so you would know about it before it actually went to closing. So this is good. It's a great pilot program. Good idea, for sure. And the pilot program, again, it won't help you if you haven't signed up for the property fraud alert. So make sure you do that.
Property fraud alert is free, offered in every single county in Florida. The big thing, though, there's two types of title fraud. Is this person was trying to represent himself fraudulently as Stanley Jones, the rightful owner. In some situations, they record a fake deed transferring ownership from the rightful owner to a fictitious name that they've created. In that situation, property fraud alert will let you know, the rightful owner, hey, something's been recorded, this deed has been recorded, and then you're alerted. Now, the deed has already been recorded. However, the next step is attempting to mortgage it, attempting to sell it to an unsuspecting third party. So in that, you can kind of catch them in the act in the middle of it before it goes to the next step, hopefully. But unfortunately, right now, with the laws that we have on the books, the responsibility is on the owner to protect him or herself. And so I highly encourage you, the state just passed it this year. Every county in the state of Florida is now required to offer this free property fraud alert to every citizen. And so it's available, but we have record low participation in it. And so really it's on us. Katrina's doing a great job in getting the word out there. Tell your family, tell your friends. If you're listening to this show, please sign up today.
We do get a lot of real estate people that listen to our show. We get a lot of title people and other professionals that listen to the show. So if you're hearing this, please protect your clients and let them know to sign up for this. Sign them up while you're sitting with them at closing.
Especially if you've got parents, grandparents that own property, if you own something in a business name, especially if it's a property that you are not residing in. You know, we've seen tenants try to steal their landlord's property and record fake fraudulent deeds. So if you have investment properties, you can register both your personal name and your business name and get those text alerts, which won't get caught in your spam and your email, and you'll get them right away.
So, Stanley, I have to say, at least the detective that was working on your case in the financial crimes, she at least knew what was going on and what was happening, which is a step above what we had a few years before, where
Yes.
none of them had any idea what this even was. So she seemed to be at least educated in the fact that this was happening and it was a financial crime being committed. Have you had any more follow-up with them or anything? Any additional traction on that?
I did. A third detective called me. I'm trying to read my own notes here. On the 7th of August, and said she was on the case. I gave her additional information that I had. She said she would get back with me. I didn't hear from her by the 12th. I called back the 12th and left a message and have not heard anything again.
Yeah, that was the same one that I talked to. So it took 3 detectives to get one that actually knew what was going on, and she specialized in these financial crimes. So she definitely had a knowledge base of what was happening. And so I said, man, we should just set these guys up. We should totally take the listing, figure out where they are, and go nab them. They're probably out of the country, though, so it doesn't do us any good.
They may or may not be. The biggest title fraud that we busted, which was 1.1 million of attempted fraudulent transactions through our title office. It took the Pinellas County Sheriff's 5 years to research and prosecute the case, and then the gentleman that was charged, he was only charged with the one loan that he took out, and that's it. So he only got probation, no jail time. But I don't want to fault our law enforcement because, as I think we stated, they can only enforce the laws that are on the books.
Right.
And the ones on the books is up to our legislators. So unfortunately, they're playing the catch-up game. The criminals are outpacing our laws. But the good news is that it's on the radar for our legislators. So Lee County is doing a test program where in order to electronically record things, your witnesses even have to provide photo identification. I don't believe that then goes into the public record, but it's stored on the back end so that they're cross-referencing that, asking for more credentialing to electronically record, and they're testing the success of that in Lee County. And then obviously if it is well received, perhaps maybe rolled out statewide. Same with Broward. It seems in Florida, they'll pick a county, they'll test it in one county, and if they have favorable results, then they'll look to be rolling it out statewide.
I think the answer is you have to be a professional with credentials, with a track record in order to even record anything like a deed or a satisfaction of mortgage, anything major like that where a several $1,000 financial crime could be committed. You should be required to have like credentials, like we said. And then, for example, if you're a brand new title company or a brand new person or an owner and you've never filed this before, you should be required to come in person.
Well, definitely with title companies, you have to have licensing, you have to have E&O insurance, you have to have all of these things. But I can tell you that the owner of Insured Title Agency, she said we are getting hit every single day. It's something new where we had actually physical checks stolen out of our mailbox and rewritten with different amounts to different people. So they're still doing check washing. So if the new ones aren't working, they're going back to the oldies and baddies. And we had to report that to the post office that our mailbox in our complex was being burglarized. Luckily, we have a 2-step authentication process for any physical checks that are issued from our account, so none of those got through. But again, it's like, how much can Insured Title Agency is a small, locally owned, locally managed business, and they're spending so much time and effort just preventing crime instead of just focusing on being able to help those correct customers.
Yeah, again, I think if it's your first time ever filing a deed or something, they should absolutely not allow that. You should be required to come with identification. Even then, I mean, if this other guy that had your name on an ID, and how common is the last name Jones, right? I mean,
Right.
I can't imagine how many times you guys has to cross-reference out a judgment by social, but that's the only way I see to be able to stop this. Senate Bill 526 and House Bill 289 will help. It's an extra step to alert before the deed and the change occurs, but you still have to be signed up for property fraud alerts. So.
Please sign up for Property Fraud Alert. It is free. None of us on this show are getting spiffed for it. We're simply sending out this message to as many people as possible.
Definitely a PSA. This is Tampa Home Talk. We'll be right back. Welcome home.
This is Tampa Home Talk. We're at the final segment. I don't even have any listings today.
We have a few listings. We do. We sold a lot of them, and a lot of stuff sold this week. This has been a crazy busy
I got
week.
listings. I just ripped them out of your hands.
Yes, you did.
Let me know when I can go.
So, really quick, just to tie a little bow on this, please, please, please reach out to your local legislators. Please reach out to government, like the governor's office. Please reach out everywhere you can to your local commissioners to help pass House Bill 289 and Senate Bill 526, which would give property owners a little bit more protection from their properties being stolen. And make sure you sign up for property fraud alerts.
And just know that your local realtor association actually has an advocacy arm where we are communicating regularly with our elected officials about home ownership rights and property rights. We have committees at the statewide level. And then once a year, we go to Tallahassee called Great American Realtor Days, where all of the realtors statewide talk to their elected officials about these types of issues so that we ensure it's on their radar, that they know the level of importance, and that they understand the impact in our communities of not having these laws in place.
Okay, so we'll talk about some listings. I got a couple in my head that are signed that are not on there. You want to hear about those? Okay. So, and you might have a buyer or know someone or got a connection that has a buyer, but I have two properties on the Hillsborough River.
Huzzah.
Side by side, solid block all the way up, $360 each.
What?
They want to close fast for cash, not on the active market.
I bet they do.
Yep. No, they're real buyers. I mean, real sellers.
Yes.
Off-air number, if you want some information on that property or you know someone that might, 813-377-2775. And we've got a couple others. I literally signed 3 listings yesterday. 813-377-2775. All right. Carry
Okay,
away.
we've got 2 listings and 1 rental. Let's start with the listings. 19445 Sunset Bay Drive. This is a 2010 home for $465 price reduction. The price was reduced while it was in my hands.
Not been updated.
Beautiful. This is 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms.
Gorgeous. By the way, biggest lot in Lakeshore Ranch.
Biggest
community,
lot.
Manned gated community.
It is a third of an acre. This is Lakeshore Ranch in Land O'Lakes, 19445 Sunset Bay, $465,000. Price reduction while I sat here. Can't get any better than that. The longer I hold this, is the more price reductions coming?
I don't make the owner I don't make the decision for that. The owner does, but
19211 Pelican Ridge Lane, Tampa. This is New Tampa, 33647. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms. Beautiful private community. And it's 2004 build, so it's just approaching its 20-year mark. It's a baby as far as homes go.
it's got a pool, nice floor plan.
It could be yours, $575,000. Is there an open house on this soon?
I think there is. I think we're doing one on that one this weekend, but I don't have the details.
I used to announce open houses.
We can get it to you if you want to call or text. 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775.
Literally throwing your papers in the air.
If you're watching YouTube or Facebook, you'll
Smash like and
those.
subscribe. And then last, we have 14626 Red Castle Ave. This one's in Lithia. If you're looking for a rental, we have a 2020 year built.
It looks brand new.
Looks brand new. I mean, it's
gorgeous.
only 4 years old. I mean, it had a mask on it for 3 years with COVID.
3-car garage.
And one thing I can add to the Katrina's listings is she works with Insure Title Agency. We do what we call a quality check, a new listing service for all of her active listings. So with Katrina, you know that this is the right and correct seller. There are no liens. There are no defects to title. We have done all of the research. We put it in a beautiful book. She displays it on the kitchen counter for open houses and all prospective buyers. And that way you know when you're looking at Katrina's listings that you do not have to worry about any of these title fraud issues or these doomsday stories that we've been talking about today.
Can you imagine, like, with all the changes with the whole buyer agent compensation thing, and then buyers now not having representation of an agent because they think they have to stroke a check for it, which, by the way, you don't. You don't. The seller is still paying commission.
Maybe not necessarily. It's up to that individual situation.
I mean, listen, there's help out there. You can get it. You definitely can get it. It's no different than a buyer that doesn't have all their closing costs and asks for a credit. There's no difference. You can get help.
This is where I would say, if you are a prospective buyer, sellers get a listing appointment, they interview the listing agent, then they move forward with the person they feel is best, the professional person that's going to get the job done. Hey, buyers, you have the right to do the same.
Right.
Sit down and interview. It's not just the first person that answered your call and opens the door. Sit down, get to know that agent, ask all of the questions that you have, let them give you some information about their credentials and their background and why they feel that they're the best representative for you in that transaction. And then move forward with the buyer's agent that you feel is going to best represent you, because if you don't have representation and you're simply dealing with the listing agent, unless that listing agent also becomes your representative, the listing agent represents the seller and not you.
Right. And it's, we're a transaction broker state, so that can get a little bit dicey too, which, you probably need a law degree to understand that. But
You do.
Anyway.
So the biggest thing is ask the questions and understand. But I took the accredited buyer's representative course that's offered to realtors this year, and because NAR was offering it for free as a professional credentialing for realtors and investing in further education for myself and to share with my colleagues. And the biggest misrepresentation is the seller is selling the house, and so the seller is not the genesis of the transaction, though, because as we talked about in the market stats, there's a lot on the market that's not selling because it's the buyer bringing the bag of money to purchase the home
right.
that honestly starts the transaction. So the buyer should be in control of that, and it's the buyer that's inheriting this home and potential title defects and those problems in the future if you don't get a proper title research done and get an owner's policy.
That's what I tell the sellers when they say, I want X, and I say, well, I don't have any data to support it. And I say, well, you can throw any number on the market. It doesn't mean you're going to get it unless I'm the one writing you a check to buy it, and I'm not willing to write you a check at that price. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at it from that. Buyers are savvy. They're doing their homework. They're looking to see what they can buy for the money, and they're educated. I think now more than I've ever seen in my whole career.
Definitely.
So, Stanley, what do you think? Did you have a good time on the show this week?
I have.
And what are your thoughts? What would you tell anyone else that that maybe has never heard of this, or it's something brand new?
Get an experienced realtor and use title insurance.
Yay! Well, that's the best.
Property fraudulence.
That's the best endorsement I've heard.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get one of the clerk's office on too to talk about that, because they probably have some fun stories.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
I want to add this, is that I had my friend who's in the sign business make 2 signs, and I put them in the trees on this property with an extension ladder that says this property is not for sale.
Smart.
For more information, call my number.
The real Stanley Jones.
Yes, yes.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking your time to come hang out with us on the air and share your story. Hopefully with us playing that audio earlier in the show, you guys get an idea how easy this can get started. And then you have a lot of uneducated agents that are just excited to get a new listing, and they start running enthusiastically in the wrong direction. So just be mindful of that. Our off-air number is 813-377-2775. You can call or text for more information if you want some help signing up for property deed frauds. We're happy to help. 813-377-2775. Love where you live, or we're going to fix it. Welcome home.